Hello.
Hello, I can hear you. Professor, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, dear participants, now we are moving ahead with our afternoon session, where we have an eminent speaker in between us. That is Dr. Jeevan Joseph. Before I just go throughout it, uh, I just want to say that, sir, we are very much thankful to you that you accepted our invitation and you have agreed to deliver your expert talk on a much innovative topic of gas hydration.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Uh,
Thank you.
Dr. Jeevan Joseph completed his BTech in civil engineering from Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala, and he pursued his master's in engineering from NIT Surat. Later on, he joined the Environmental Geotechnology Lab at IIT Bombay in the field of and got awarded with PhD in 2017. From his work, he has published numerous articles, research papers in a very highly referred and reputed journal, and he has also filed many patents on his title. He was instrumental in approving the research grants from ONGC for developing the methodologies and instrumentation for simulating in situ conditions of gas hydrate bearing sediments. He was a visiting researcher in UPSC Barcelona from European Commission via IAS Project GREAT, that is the geotechnical and geological responses for climate change. During his tenure, he worked on the NAGA's R&D program, that is the gas MX80 bentonite, that is a Swiss-funded project. He has also delivered talk for Koita University, Japan, on the topic implication of poor characteristics in unsaturated soil mechanics. Currently, he is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at NIT Trichy. In addition, he is an active geotechnical consultant and he has handled various infrastructure projects under that is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Bharat Electronics Limited, Indian Institute of Flood Technology, the National Highways Authority of India, Southern Railways, and etc. He has recently completed his one AICT project and is currently working on his second sponsored DST project. So I warmly welcome Dr. Jeevan Joseph to this HTTP, and may I now request Dr. Jeevan Joseph to start the session.
Many thanks, Professor Shah, for introducing me to the crowd. Uh,
Hello. Hello. Sir, is there any issue? Charlie, madam?
Sir, I think there was some internet connectivity issue, and our guest speaker is also left. I think there is some issue on their side also. Maybe is trying to
Okay.
rejoin again.
Yes, please.
Hello, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, there was a bit of internet connectivity issue. Uh, just whether the slide is visible as of now?
Yes, sir. The slide is visible.
Thank you. So, thank you, Professor Shah. Thank you for introducing me to the crowd. So today I'll be more than happy to spend almost 1.5 hours with you to just share my experience working in this particular topic of gas hydrate. So the initial part of the session, I would like to take you through a journey, how exactly I ended up in this particular topic of research, and how exactly got related to the geotechnical engineering concepts at a later stage. So, so just to take a brief introduction, how exactly or where exactly as a country we stand in the energy sector, I would like to draw your attention. As a country, we are the fourth largest country as far as the energy consumption is being concerned. And if you foresee or if you forecast the demand for energy in the coming next 10 couple of decade or next couple of 20 years, it has always been anticipated that actually we require almost close to 2000 million barrels of equivalent oil. So that is the energy demand actually we foresee for the future. Similarly, when we think about the natural gas, when we think about the amount of consumption that we are utilizing, the rate at which we utilize natural gas for various infrastructure developments, for various industries, and so on. So the demand is too much. At present, actually, we are almost close to 500 million metric cubic meter per day. So this is the rate at which actually we are using. Now, in the coming decade, by 2030, so this is a data which I have obtained from GAIL, Gas Authority of India, and we are almost, anticipating a deficit of close to, 200 to 250 million metric cube of, natural gas supply. So this is where exactly we stand. So we have, as a developing country, we are in immense need for an alternative energy source, or we are always trying to see some sort of energy source that can support us at least for the next decade. We all believe that actually all the renewable sources of energy like the solar and the wind and so on, so everything has its own pros and cons, but at the stage we cannot completely say no to the existing resources like natural gas as well as oil. So let us think about the alternative solution. What exactly can be done in order to tackle this issue? So as you all know, right now we are not in the surplus amount. The quantity of natural gas which is produced in the country is not sufficient enough to withstand the need for the country. So we are importing natural gas from various countries like Australia and other Middle East countries for meeting the day-to-day needs. Now, this is the time at which we require to have an alternative solution in order to tackle the energy deficit that we are facing today. So in this context, I would like to just take you all to know what exactly is happening beneath the ocean bed. It's always mysterious to know what exactly happens beneath the ocean bed. We all believe that actually, we have plenty of oil as well as gas resources which are beneath the ocean bed. Now, how exactly? I just want to draw your attention to how exactly these gases are getting generated beneath the ocean bed, just prior to my discussions on the gas hydrates. Now, this is just a layout diagram of how exactly an ocean bed looks like. We have water column almost close to 800 to 900 meters in many situations. Then followed by that, actually we meet the sediment. From there, we will start, seeing that we have different type of gas deposits, gas reservoirs, oil deposits, and so on. So Now, most of these gases, they are generated, well beneath the sediment layers. So to be very honest, if you see the temperature profile of the ocean bed, so that has a lot of thing to do with the generation of gases or the oil that you utilize day to day. So say for example, if you have a temperature which is close to 30 degrees Celsius, which is hitting the surface of sea water, or when we travel down, we can see that the rays, the sun rays will get weaker and weaker, and when we are closer to a depth of close to 500 meters or 600 meters from the surface, the temperature will fall of the order to 0 to 3 degrees Celsius. So that much is the the reduction in temperature that you can see inside an ocean bed. At the same time, there is something which is interesting. We can see that the temperature is keeping on increasing as we hit the sediment bed. So this is another phenomenon actually we have to look at it, because the temperature is keeping on increasing the moment actually we hit the surface. So from 30, we could bring it down to 3 degrees. From there onwards, actually the temperature is going even close to 700 degrees Celsius when you are touching the mantle portions. So all these portions that you see is part of a lithosphere in which actually all this phenomena is happening. Now, there are two ways by which the gases are getting generated beneath the ocean bed. So the moment I use the word gas, please always infer that actually it is basically the natural gas that I'm speaking about. So there are two ways by which actually the gas is getting generated beneath the ocean bed. So it can be either of thermogenic origin. So because of the activities, because of the extremely high temperature which is prevailing beneath the sediment bed, the organic matter will get converted to natural gas, so that those gas forms are called as thermogenic origin. Similarly, we have the bacteria, the active colonies of microbial presence, which is at a shallow depth. Shallow, I mean that actually it is from a depth which is closer to 100 meters, 300 meters, or 500 meters from the sediment bed. So in both these locations, we have gas formations. Now, owing to its low density, the methane gas, it will have a tendency to move upward, because when more and more gas is getting generated, so because of the excessive pressure, it will try to create cracks as well as fault as well as fractures inside the sediment bed. So from the figure, actually, you can clearly make out that the gases are trying to move out of the system. So this is something which is very interesting to see from nature, how complex it is. So this can be one of the reasons why we must have also read about the articles or the mysterious various types of low pressure tides which are occurring in oceans and so on. So it can always be correlated with respect to the gases that are being getting generated beneath the ocean bed, so creating such whirlpools in ocean beds. So these cracks that you see beneath the sediments, so through these pathways, the gases will try to migrate and it will try to escape through the atmosphere. Now, this is truly speaking a dangerous sign, because methane, if you compare the potential of methane gas with respect to that of carbon dioxide, methane is almost, of the order of 20 to 25 times more potential than carbon dioxide in harming the ozone layers. So we cannot just let it happen, because the methane gas, which is, it cannot be let it freely. I am sure that actually you must have heard from various lectures which were given related to the waste management. The methane gas that is getting generated from the landfills, they will set it to fire. They won't allow it freely go to the atmosphere, because actually it is much more potential than carbon dioxide in spoiling the ozone layers. So in various ways, so while this gas is trying to travel from beneath the sediment bed to the surface, what exactly happened is it is passing through various zones of pressure and temperature compositions. We know from the surface of water till a depth of 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer, the pressure is keeping on increasing. If it is the hydrostatic pressure, or if it is basically the total pressure which is of the sediments which is acting, the pressure is keeping on building up. At the same time, we can see a drastic variation in the temperature. Now, to know it better, or to understand how exactly these hydrates are generated, I have just taken a schematic diagram in which I'm just bringing the actual layers which are found beneath the sediments. So we have a zone in which we are having the free gas. So this is a location from which the conventional people are deriving or extracting the gases and the conventional oil and so and so. Now, at the same time, there is a zone which is demarcated in blue, wherein it is also called as the hydrate occurrence zone. So this is a zone at which the ambient temperature as well as the pressure which is required for the formation of gas hydrate is available. So to introduce to you the concept of gas hydrate, so the gas hydrates are nothing other than basically the gases which are crystals which are found beneath the ocean bed at certain depth because of the critical combination of temperature and pressure. So the gases that are available are either from biogenic origin or from the thermogenic origin. Now, in this context, draw your attention how exactly the hydrate stability zone can be established in a hydrate bearing sediment. So as I have told you, the basic inevitable components for the formation of gas hydrate is basically the availability of natural gas and liquid. So both these components are available beneath the ocean bed. At the same time, we have to have a combination of a specific pressure and a temperature condition. So on the left hand side, you can see a graph wherein a hydrate stability zone, the red line which demarcates a hydrate stability zone, which shows the specific pressure and temperature at which the hydrates are quite stable in nature. So if you have a pressure and a temperature combination which is below the red line, that indicates it is in the verge of dissociation, or gas hydrates cannot be formed at that particular stage. If you are having a pressure which is greater than the stability pressure and temperature Am I audible to you? Whether the slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry for the trouble. I'm not sure what exactly is happening. There is some issue with the network connectivity.
No problem.
Okay. So to proceed further, so in order to think about the production basis, or whenever we are thinking about how exactly we need to get this methane gas out of the system, there are three different ways by which actually we can think about proceeding further. So as I have mentioned earlier, either we have to play with the stability condition in which we can increase the temperature of the system, or you can think of reducing the pressure, or in the other situation, actually, you can think about adding some sort of chemical inhibitors. So very recently, actually, there are people who are working in this area in which they are trying to inject carbon dioxide inside the system, trying to replace it with methane. So it serves the purpose of the sequestration of carbon dioxide. At the same time, effective exploration or effective dissociation of gas hydrate can also be happening. Now, why exactly there is a lot of charm for this material? Why exactly this hydrate, this solid material, is having a lot of charm? So just to take you insight on what exactly this particular hydrate does. So truly speaking, it is basically it's an association of various host and guest molecules. So most of the cases, actually, we will have the methane molecule, which is basically the guest, and we are having the water molecules which is surrounding it. Now, whenever we have the extreme high pressure which is existing beneath the ocean bed and the lower temperature, it will favor the formation of hydrates. The crystallization happens at that specific temperature and pressure. So if you recollect the graph which I have shown to you, the red stability chart, wherever we, whatever be the temperature as well as the pressure which is existing, we can have the stable occurrence of hydrates. So if you look at the potential of gas hydrates, it is always been quantified that it is the total amount of gas hydrate which is available is twice greater than the all fossil fuel reserve which is present as of now, which is identified as of now. Now you can think about the potential. Now twice the amount is something which can at least safeguard for the next century. At least for the next century, we may not have to think about any other alternative energy source. Now, at the same time, if you see a single meter cube, as I have told you, it is all about the pressure and temperature. A single meter cube of gas hydrate, it can dissociate into 164 meter cube of gas and 0.8 meter cube of water. So whenever we see these figures, we have to be pretty happy. At the same time, this will also pose a challenge on when we think about the exploration, or when we are thinking about the extraction of this gas from that particular location. Because when we think about changing its thermodynamic condition for its extraction, so truly speaking, if it is uncontrolled, so something like an explosion is going to happen, which is beneath the ocean bed. So I mean, it can end up in various trauma. And there exactly you can see an image which shows a solid methane hydrate clathrate. So you can see it is looking something which is similar to that of ice crystal. But just assume that actually you have the size of that of a triaxial sample. So whenever we are having a triaxial sample, we know that actually its volume comes to close to 87 to 88 centimeter cube. Now at the same time, when we are allowing this methane hydrate to expand in the sense actually when it dissociates. So dissociation, when it happens, so it can go up to almost 14,000 centimeter cube. So you can think about the amount of expansion which it is undergoing. Now there are various ways by which the presence of hydrates were detected beneath the ocean bed. So one of that method is called as the IR method, in which we are using the high resolution IR cameras. So the dark patches inside, so this is basically a sample which is extruded from a pressure core barrel. So here you can see the profiling of temperature which has happened for the sample. You can see the white patches, we have the yellow patches, and we have the black patches which are found. So as I have told you, whenever gas hydrates are taken from the cores, it will try to absorb energy. It will try to absorb heat from the nearby location. So truly speaking, this particular process is truly endothermic. So when it is turning out to be endothermic, the temperature will be as low as 15 or 14 degrees Celsius. So these core barrels, the pressure core barrels, which are taken samples from the sediment beneath the ocean bed, when it is kept open and when it is been scanned, we can see that, we can see the dark patches which indicates the presence of hydrates at that particular locations. Similarly, we can also utilize the facility for, or you can always take the electrical resistivity method, because as we all know, the presence of hydrates beneath the sediments. So we are having a crystallization which is happening at certain depth. So these gas molecules as well as the water molecules, they are entering into a solid phase. So when these molecules enter into a solid phase, the free ions for conducting may not be available for conductivity. So that's the reason why in this particular diagram or in this particular image that you see in front of you, you can see certain depth from 50 meters to almost close to 75 meters. You can see a very high electrical resistivity. So the high electrical resistivity is because of the absence of free ions that take part in electrical conductivity. So eventually it resulted in showing or exhibiting higher electrical resistivity values. Whereas for other depths, you can see the electrical resistivity is varying or varying close to 10 ohm meters. So this is also another way by which you can indicate or you can check the presence of hydrate beneath the ocean bed. Now coming to the actual business, or when we speak about how exactly, so all these things what we were discussing is to give a preliminary idea on gas hydrates, just to give you an outlook on why exactly actually we need to carry, or why exactly this hydrate is important as far as the present energy scenario is been concerned. Now, when it comes to the actual various research themes on which people work in this particular domain, is basically the biochemistry, in which, as I have mentioned, the type of gas molecules inside a clathrate, it can be methane, it can be ethane, propane, butane, it can be any of the hydrocarbons which is present. So at the same time, the structure of the clathrate also will change. So there is a lot of potential for the biochemist to act on it. And as I have mentioned, so the origin of gas, it can be either biogenic or thermogenic. So based on that, also the type of the gas molecules which is present inside the clathrate varies. So there is a lot of potential, or there is a lot of wide scope for which the biochemist can work in this particular domain. Similarly, as I have mentioned, it has always a close relation with the climate studies, because something which is it's something like a Pandora's box. We don't know what exactly is going to happen the moment we are trying to take it out. So any catastrophe or any uncontrolled extraction or expedition might result in the uncontrolled release of methane gas into the atmosphere, which might turn out to be dangerous if you look at the scale at which actually methane gas can be produced from this. So always we have to keep open the climate studies, in which we need to understand the potential threat these research team might pose or open in front of the society. Similarly, there is an active research team which is working in the domains of petrophysics, in which they try to identify which all are the potential sources from which they can go for the commercial extraction of gas hydrates. Because wherever you go, or whenever, if you go to the KG Basin, if you go to the Indian Ocean, Arabian Ocean, wherever you go, these gas hydrates are found at shallow depths. Now, at the same time, we have to see, whenever we are investing some money for the extraction, we have to see whether it can yield me methane gas for the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. So always the cost of economics has a bigger role in deciding whether we have to go for a particular or identify a particular location or not. So to identify the well, its potential, and so. So always there is a huge demand for the petrophysics who can work in this domain. Similarly, at the same time, so as long as we are working with the sediments, so there is a lot of things which are associated with this geotechnics that is involved. So that is how this particular research theme is associated. So in the coming slides, I am trying to explain to you how exactly the geotechnics has a role in gas hydrate research themes. So just to break the curiosity, so I will tell you, how exactly the geomechanics is involved in hydrate formation and dissociation. So as I have told you in the initial slide, we have the gas which is trying to escape from the ocean bed. So at somewhere, because of, it's basically a nature's phenomena by which it get arrested at certain depth, wherein we have a lower temperature. At the same time, we are having a pressure which is ambient enough so that actually these gas molecules will trap into ice-like crystals. So truly speaking, actually it's a natural phenomenon which is happening beneath the ocean bed. At the same time, we have to always think about the methodologies by which we can try for its extraction. So the thermal, flow is one of the, potential methods which people use to carry out research in which they are attempting the extraction of energy. So whenever we alter with the temperature, the thermodynamic conditions, you can always slightly increase the temperature. So the moment we increase the temperature, so the dissociation will happen. The hydrate will dissociate into free methane as well as water. Now, at the same time, so as you see over here, there is a phase change. So initially, methane hydrate, which was a crystal, was a part of the matrix. So once its phase change happens, once the temperature is being induced, once the heating is being induced, these solid clathrates will change its form to free liquid as well as gas. So now you can imagine the extent that actually you are going to play with it. So something which was very solid in nature, the moment actually you are trying to convert them into a fluid, it can be either gas as well as water. Now, there can be a mechanical deformation which is expected because actually the moment actually we are disturbing the matrix as a whole, there can be the deformations or the alterations in the sediment arrangement which is likely to happen. At the same time, the moment it would dissociate to gas as well as liquid, the gases will try to escape, it will try to flow. At the same time, the fluid flow is also, the liquid flow is also being anticipated. Now, let us go into the intricacies of, the various steps that are involved in the hydrate formation, as well as the various stages at which we play with the geomechanics. So the first and foremost aspect at which the role of a geotechnical engineer comes is basically the crystallization phase of gas hydrates. So I have just indicated, 4 figures in front of you, just to make you realize the various ways by which the hydrates are formed or getting originated in sediments. So we have the incrustation in which, whenever 2 grains are close to each other, we have a slight thin layer of hydrate which will be encapsulating them. Similarly, we have the cementation type of hydrate in which the green color is indicating basically the hydrate. So it is trying to cement this particle. Now you can just try to correlate, the cementation, the word cementation, it really means the particles are binded together. The solid grains or the sediment grains are being binded together. Similarly, in figure C, you can see a case in which it is acting as a part of a sediment itself. It is acting as a sediment crystal, which is found beneath the ocean bed. So in that case, actually, it will have a behavior which is symmetrical to that of the sediment, taking part in the load carrying capacity or taking part in the load distribution and so on and so. Again, we have a different type of filling in which very fine nodules, small crystals, which will get immersed inside the pores of the sediments. So these are the major ways by which the sediments or the various ways by which the hydrates are occurring inside a natural, sediment or a natural ocean bed. So it's basically a nature's art by which actually there are different ways by which the hydrate occur. So this is basically governed by various factors. I just would like to draw your attention to what are the various factors that govern the type of hydrate formation that happens. So one is basically the type of sediment which is present over there. So it can be either the fine grained soil or it can be coarse grained soil. So depending upon the type of fine grain, so for example, we have mostly it is found that the cementation type is found in the coarse grained sediment. Similarly, the metric supporting is also found in coarse grain. Similarly, the other aspect that we need to consider is basically the fabric orientation. So as we all know, in clay fabrics, actually we have dispersed as well as flocculated structures, which is mostly widely seen. So the formation of hydrate also varies depending upon the orientation of the clay. So once we had an opportunity to work with these samples in our lab at IIT Bombay. So while we were taking certain images which were obtained for the hydrates which were once bearing sediments, we could see various orientations of face-to-face, allocation, as well as edge-to-face allocations, and so on and so. At the same time, there is something which is much more important, which is basically the pore characteristics. So over there, this is another major important factor. So as I have told you in one of the slides, always the gases will try to migrate through the cracks that are getting evolved, which is beneath the ocean bed. So these cracks are interconnected. So when these gases are trying to move through these cracks, so it is getting trapped at certain locations, which was demarcated as the hydrate bearing zone or the hydrate stability zone, in which it completely changed its phase from gas to a solid. Similarly, at the same time, we have to also ensure the type of hydrate which is getting generated is dependent upon whether the hydrate formation happens at a gas-rich environment or a water-rich environment. So this particular term is slightly complicated for you to understand, but just to make you realize that there are certain locations at which we have the presence of more gas, but the liquid availability will be pretty less. That happens mostly at deeper depths, whereas at shallow depths, mostly it is seen that we have mostly a water-rich environment. So based on that, the type of hydrate which are getting generated also varies. So just have a closer look on the image which has been shown to you. We can also realize that depending upon the type of hydrates which are getting generated, the behavior is going to be completely different for all the different types of sediments. So the role of a hydrate in a coarse grained soil may not be the same as that of a fine grained soil. So this is what actually we have to realize from the way in which actually the crystallization happens inside the sediments. Now, going into slightly a bit more detail on the various phase changes during the dissociation phase of gas hydrates, the solid methane gas hydrate will change its phase to gas as well as water. So while undergoing such a dissociation, there are a lot of geomechanics concepts which are getting evolved out of this theme. So as we all know, the hydrates are basically, they are solid clathrates. Its behavior as well as its properties are very similar to that of ice. If you check for the density of ice as well as the clathrate is close to 0.9. So its properties are almost similar. At the same time, we can also, whenever we have a hydrate growth which is happening inside the pore space, whenever we think about a pore structure, whenever we think about a matrix in which the crystallization happens or wherein the growth of hydrate happens, there is a reduction in pore volume which is happening at the same time. So I have just put you a schematic of a mercury interaction porosimeter test, wherein I'm just trying to convey, I'm just not going to the depth of it. What you can make out from this figure is that whenever we are having a matrix which is having the presence of moisture, let's assume that actually the saturation state is close to 60 or 70% inside it. So the moment the crystallization of water happens, what will happen is that the water particles will change its phase to ice. So it is going to have a completely different pore structure for the matrix which it is getting generated out of it. So we can, it is always been observed that the pore volume gets shrunk. At the same time, it is also seen that the peak pore diameters which are present over there, their dimensions also get shrunk. So this is something which happens when the crystallization happens. So altogether, we can expect a reduction in pore volume with the crystallization or with the growth of crystals inside the sediments or in any soil matrix. So this particular property is similar for ice crystals as well as the hydrate growth. So thereby, what we can expect is basically the intrinsic permeability, which has been believed to be a property which is exhibited by the matrix, will get altered. So traditionally, actually, the intrinsic permeability was always been defined as a metric characteristics, but with the phase change of the materials which are present over there, we can expect the basic property getting altered. Now, another area at which or in which the variation happens, or the various geomechanical attribute or the property which is linked, is basically the flow behavior. So whenever we speak about the basic flow behavior, so we have the gas permeability which is associated with the gas hydrate bearing sediments. So always the ultimate aim of going for such a research is to go for the safe extraction, as well as at the same time a comparatively cost-effective method which will suit the extraction of gas or methane gas from the hydrate bearing sediments. So always it is a very critical parameter to check the gas permeability of hydrate bearing sediments. So way back in almost 4 years back, actually we have created certain setups in the lab just for simulating the gas permeability studies on hydrate bearing sediments. We have conducted few studies in order to simulating how exactly the gas flow happens through the sediments. Similarly, at present, actually, one of my PhD scholar is also working in a similar theme, in which he is trying to understand the flow behavior or the gas flow behaviors under varied temperature conditions. It can be either sub-zero conditions or can be at elevated temperatures. So it's basically a complex mechanisms. So please realize that actually these are not simple everything won't happen in a day or so. So it requires not.
Sir, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, just one question. I don't know if the right time to ask you or not. But
Yeah, please.
how you identify that whether those hydrates are active hydrates or non-active hydrates? Means every hydrate doesn't have a gas in it. So how first question arises, how you are identifying these gas hydrates to be an active gas hydrates?
So that's an interesting question. So whenever we are, as I have told you, so there are 3 different ways by which actually the gas hydrates. Sir, are you from civil background or your background, please? If I may ask you, hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, I'm from civil background.
Yes, sir. Okay. So there are basically 3 ways by which actually we categorize the type of hydrates. We have the S1 structure, we have the S2 structure, and we have the S3 structure. So the way in which actually they classify the structure is based on the type of the gas molecule which is present inside the S1, S2, as well as S3. Okay. So whenever we think about active hydrate, or whenever think about the type of gas, is basically something which has to be understood from the moment actually we take the sediment out of it. We have to analyze for the type of gas which is getting liberated out of it. The moment the dissociation happens, that there are 3 or 4 different type of gas. You cannot always expect 90 or 99% methane. That can be an ideal situation. So in most of the cases, actually, it will be a mixture of gases. So in mixture of gases, I would say that rather than methane, we will have the higher order hydrocarbons like ethane, propane, butane, and so on. So likewise, so whenever we are taking a core sample of a gas hydrate from a particular segment or from a particular location, we have to take the sample out. We have to go for the identification of the type of gases which are present inside them. Now, that always remember one thing. The structure or the clathrate, when you see inside the pore, it will be hardly of 1 centimeter or 2 centimeter cube, whereas there are deposits in which huge meter cube, large cobalt sized gas hydrates are present inside. So in such natures, actually we will have other gases also. We have the presence of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and so on. So other complex gases are also present. So we cannot directly utilize this gas for the purpose with which we are intending to getting them dissociated. So we have to dissociate this gas. We have to have some in situ method for converting the phase change, dissociate the gas hydrate, take the gas out of the system. After that, the way in which actually we do for a crude oil, a conventional crude oil, we have the way in which we do the distillation process for the crude oil. We have to go for the filtration. We have to go for segregation of the gases which are getting evolved out of it. So, hello.
Yes, sir. So what you told is absolutely correct. But another question also arises that when you are characterizing these gas hydrates in a liquid phase or a gas phase and in other forms, At that time, the intermolecular, or you can say the intermolecular porosity, which is
Intermolecular porosity meaning?
means
What exactly you mean by that?
sir, the porosity which is lying in between the two molecules of that gases, particularly if it is
Okay.
present, okay,
Okay.
then it is necessary that those molecules are in a state of that condition only through on the means the I mean to say the way you have procured from the beds means sea beds, it is necessary that the inner characteristics will remain same also.
First of all, please try to understand that taking the sample without dissociation on board itself is a very tough task. So I'm sure that actually you must have read somewhere something which is related to pressure core barrels. So have
Yes,
you?
sir.
Okay. So in pressure core barrels, actually the setup is designed in such a way that actually you can maintain the pressure, not the temperature conditions. Okay. So many a times it so happened that the moment you take the sample and bring to the board, until otherwise actually you have some geotechnical experimentation facility which is available on board, it is highly impossible to conduct test on these samples, because ultimately our aim of proceeding, so as I have told you, when you see the bifurcation in this research team, we have a component of biochemists who will be working in order to understand the type of various gases which will be working or which are present inside them. So based on that, actually we will decide whether to uh, going for further expedition in that particular location or not. So at the same time, we have petrophysics. So these two wings are also parallelly working with us in order to understand whether it is a potential, location to go for methane gas hydrate expedition or not. So that is the first thing actually we have to answer. All the questions which are related to, the hydro dissociation and all those things are answered only after, getting a confirmed, or getting a confirmation from these two aspects. I hope this is clear for you. So the biochemist as well as the petrophysics, actually they are the team in which they work for identifying potential wells. At the same time, they will understand the type of gases which are present in various locations. So as I have told you, it's not a pure gas which is obtained at any location. So when you think about, now let us come to the pore spaces actually which you are mentioning. The pore spaces that are present inside any sediment is, truly speaking, it is dependent upon the type of soil or the sediment. So it can be fine grained sediment or it can be coarse grained sediment. So my experience with working with such hydrate bearing sediments. So the moment actually we got the sediments, actually all the hydrates have got already dissociated. So we were having sediments which were bearing sediments once upon a time. So once we obtained these sediments, so we have identified that actually majority of the sediments were fine-grained in nature. Now, though we are having, fine-grained sediments with us, think in this way, when we are thinking about commercial extraction of methane gas, you cannot always dig a well and, like in a conventional oil reserve, you cannot dig a well, you cannot have just a borelog and a borewell and take gas out of it. In methane hydrate extraction, we have to dissociate it first. So that's the first step. So that is one of the basic difference between the conventional way of extraction of crude oil or natural gas and the extraction of methane gas from hydrate bearing sediments. So here we have one more additional step which is left. We have to dissociate it. So the moment the dissociation happens, we have to think about the permeability aspect. So the reason why actually I am using this particular term is to make you realize the term porosity which you have used. So the porosity of the fine grained soil as well as the coarse grained soil are different. The easiness with which you can extract a gas from a coarse grain bearing methane hydrate is much more simpler as compared to a sediment which is having fine grained sediment or a clay sediment. So always we look at, or always we think forward for, or always we try to obtain sediments which are having hydrates which are coarse grained in nature. So I mean, in the expeditions that were conducted, where back in 2011 and 2015 in Japanese coast, actually they were lucky enough to get, most of their sediments in sand, whereas the expeditions which we conducted, fortunately or unfortunately, actually we most of the majority of the samples which were collected were fine-grained in nature. So the porosity term that you have raised, so in terms of geotechnical engineering, so it is a vital parameter, but we have to always think about the cost part. Maybe my fine-grained soil might have been having a rich deposit of gas nitrate, but when I think about the economic point of view, the amount that I invest for taking the energy harvesting, I would say, it might turn out to be expensive. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Actually, why I raised this question, because recently when I was reading one article, I just found that means.
So you are working in this area. You are basically working
No,
in this
sir, I
area.
am not directly working, sir. Actually,
Okay.
we are working on hydrocarbon contamination of soil.
Hydrocarbon contamination.
Yes, sir. That
Okay.
is, we are taking various soils and we are contaminating with hydrocarbons,
Okay.
type of
Which is this,
hydrocarbon.
which phase? Gaseous phase or liquid phase?
No,
Liquid
no,
phase might be.
it is liquid phase, sir. It is in
Which
liquid
phase?
phase.
Liquid
Liquid phase,
phase.
liquid
Liquid.
phase,
Okay.
liquid
Okay.
phase.
So
So at
here,
that
yeah,
time, I
please.
was just reading that actually the permeability of this yeah, means muchly depends upon the porosity. But at that time, I was thinking that as we are working on a sea sediments, particularly they are at a very deep level, I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking whether their porosities continuously remain constant or not. That was the one just a question. And second, if this porosity is changing continuously with
Mm-hmm.
respect to the period of time, then what is the nature of their, means how it is changing? Because today you are trying to extract, or you are finding some sediment, let us say after 1 year, 2 year, or some years, whether the inner permeability of that gas has remained in that same condition for a given length or for a given depth of that strata or not.
That your question is very pertinent. I agree with it. But sir,
Yes.
always whenever we check for the sediments which are beneath the ocean bed, you can see that the porosity value tend to reduce as we move, at a larger depth. The porosity value will keep on reducing. The reason is quite simple. There is something which is called as the consolidation phenomena that happen. Okay, so because of the loading, the higher pressures which are acting for a longer time duration of, say, for example, hundreds of years. So because of this, more and more sedimentation is happening with year, more and more loading is happening. So the porosity value has a slight tendency to reduce at depth. Now, I will just give you one more angle to the question that you have asked. It's an interesting area in which you're working, but I would like to ask, keep this particular perspective in your mind. Just
Yes.
imagine actually you are going for the extraction, or you are injecting some methods, you are injecting heat, or you are injecting some chemicals, or you are applying some vacuum pressure. You are trying to take methane gas. So you have dissociated them. You have dissociated in the sense actually you converted a solid material into gas as well as water. You made it dissociate. Now what will happen is there is something which is called as a settlement that is probable to happen in that particular location, right? So that we cannot avoid. So that is one of the reasons actually people are very, very extremely careful about a controlled extraction of gas. So whenever the dissociation happen, immediately there will be an expansion because of, as I have told you, 1 meter cube getting converted to 164 meter cube. So immediately there will be an increase in pore air pressure which is going to happen. So which is just like like an expansion phase. But the moment you extract it down, then immediately there is an rearrangement of particle which is likely to happen over there. So this rearrangement of particle will make sure that actually there is eventual settlement. So the moment actually you are trying to extract it out, you can see that there will be a sort of consolidation which will be happening, meaning that the porosity of the system is not going to change throughout the expedition procedure at all.
It means we should assume that it is not an infinite mass.
No, just but at the same time, I will tell you. That's what your experiment point of view, you can assume it. But if you are trying to correlate it with respect to gas hydrate, it's complex. That's what I try to convey.
Okay. Okay.
So in gas hydrate extraction, it's a complex phenomena in which the porosity value will keep on changing because the fabric alteration, the rearrangement of the fabric as well as the grains are happening, with the extraction process, which cannot be avoided. So that is the reason why actually I have conveyed the N value is not going to remain same throughout the conduct of the experiment or at the same time when you are going for the commercial extraction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I have told you, so one of the basic attribute or one of the basic component which we have to address is basically the gas permeability. But at the same time, there is something which is called as a coupled gas and liquid flow. So we have, whenever the dissociation is happening, we have the gaseous phase as well as the liquid phase of material which is getting generated. So truly speaking, it's a complex flow behavior of coupled gas and flow because you cannot completely have a mechanism to extract gas alone. So throughout the sediments, actually, it will be a coupled flow of gas and liquid which is happening. So this part also is something which is really, really complex in nature. At the same time, we have to have methodologies by which, because the moment actually water also enters the pipe through which you are trying to extract it, efficiency of the system is going to get reduced drastically. So that also has to be taken into account. Now, I would like to, coin the word, or, this is basically a number just to make you realize how exactly or how complex the understanding of such a behavior. I just would like to, define the flow characteristics of gas that happens in normal soils. So there are different ways by which actually the flow is defined. Normally, the flow behavior, the complex flow behavior of gases inside a sediment, it can have different modes, okay, based on something which is called as the Knudsen number. So truly speaking, Knudsen number is nothing other than the mean free path of the particular gas that you have taken, as well as the mean diameter. So which means actually this particular number is not going to be the same for different gas type. In conventional geotechnical engineering, actually, we had the terms of hydraulic conductivity and intrinsic permeability. But whereas whenever we are thinking about the gas permeability aspect, whenever we are thinking about the extraction of gas from such reserves, we have to always take into account of the flow behavior, because we have to define what is the type of the gas. We have to calculate for its mean free path, which is basically the term lambda, as well as the mean diameter of the pores, meaning that actually how exactly the Knudsen number. So it is always been found that a higher Knudsen number is been, or the Knudsen flow is always been exhibited by fine grained sediments, whereas whenever we are having the coarse grained sediments, actually we are having the molecular flow in which the terms like translational and molecular flow is always been exhibited in coarse grained sediments. So this number, the reason why actually I just put this figure is to make you realize that the flow behavior is not so simple, or not so simple as that of a conventional liquid transmission. Now, we can realize whenever there is a coupled flow, when there is a coupled flow of gas and fluid liquid together, how exactly the mechanism is going to get generated, because we have the gas which is compressible in nature and we have the liquid which is incompressible in nature. So based on, we have to take into account of the gas flows, we have to take into account of the laminar flows of the water which is going to happen, and so on, so to make it further complex. Now, one of the other aspect is basically the shear strength as well as the settlement criteria that one has to look. So whenever the geomechanics part has been discussed for the dissociation of hydrates, which is happening in the ocean bed, we have to think about the shear strength as well as the settlement behavior. So as somebody was, in the previous case, actually, as one of the participants was raising a concern about the shear strength as well as the settlement behavior. So I'll just like to share a few of the aspects of the strength. So whenever we are having the different type of sediments, as I have depicted in the previous one of the slides, we have the gas hydrates, which can be either a pore filling or it can be a load bearing stuff. Now think in this way. So this particular slide gives a clear cut idea in which the part of gas hydrate is taking part in the load bearing mechanism. So truly speaking, actually, with centuries, most of these gas hydrates which will be finding at that particular depth might have been happened or might have originated at that particular location maybe centuries back. So truly speaking, at this point of time, there might be taking part in the active load bearing mechanism. Similarly, the cementing type also, it might be taking the loads which are coming from, because every year we will have, sedimentation which is happening layer by layer. So which they will induce, stresses onto the top. So these pressures is taken, a certain portion of the pressure is taken, or the load is taken up by the gas hydrate, which is making, or which is in the form of load bearing or cementing, etc. Now, at the same time, the settlement aspect, as I have discussed previously, we have, whenever we are having the dissociation of hydrate, we will have a drastic pore air pressure which is getting generated. So this is something which is very interesting, and until unless a careful aspect or careful outlook has been given for this angle, the extraction is going to be a very tedious procedure. So in conventional geotechnical engineering, we always define the term pore water pressure, or the pore water which is getting dissipated. But in this case, whereas in case of gas hydrates, wherein we are having a multi-phase problem, we have to always take into account of the pore air pressure which is getting generated. And we have, truly speaking, the dissipation is nothing other than the extraction of the methane gas out of the system. At the same time, as I have told you, we have to always look into the stability aspect, because when you are taking a certain part of a load bearing strata or certain part of something which was cementing. So the moment you are taking something which is beneath 150 or 200 meters beneath the ocean bed, there can be chances of slides, like the landslide that happens on terrestrial land. We can expect sort of slight movements beneath the sediment bed also. So this can also be anticipated. So until unless commercial expedition happens, we cannot anticipate this. But at the same time, we have to always forecast such issues also in the field when we are going for the actual expedition. So I would like to just take you through the various challenges whenever we are proceeding with the research in this particular area. So first of all, getting such samples from the field is a really difficult task, because access to those sites, having vessels which are capable enough for sampling at those particular locations, going, mostly the water column will be of the depth of almost 600 meters. From there, you have to go for sampling to a depth of close to 150, 200, or even 600 meters. Even in NGSP-01, the expedition team has procured samples at a depth of 600 meters from the sediment level. Now we can think about the level at which actually they are, working with. So getting samples bearing hydrate is a very difficult task as far as this particular research is concerned. At the same time, there are various ways by which actually the gas hydrates are getting formed. As one of our participants was asking, there are different types of hydrates which are forming. We have the pore filling, we have the cementing, grain coated, and so on. So its spatial distribution is completely unpredictable in most of the situations. In certain cases, actually they have defined only for coarse grain soils. Actually, we will have such type of filling. But at the same time, whenever we are having a mixture of soil, the spatial distribution of hydrate is highly difficult to predict. At the same time, the synthesis of hydrate, it is very challenging, because actually we have to have a high pressure system. At the same time, we have to have the facility to maintain the thermodynamic condition which is ambient enough for creating hydrates. So creating hydrate inside a lab itself is challenging. Now, after creating such samples, or after creating hydrate crystals in the laboratory, determining the shear strength parameters along with the sediments, maintaining those thermodynamic conditions without the methane gas hydrate getting dissociated, is also a big task in front of all of us. At the same time, getting the water permeability, because as I have told you, it's a phase which is keeping on changing. The porosity is changing. The orientation of the fabric is getting changed. We are having the complete, the permeability of the system which is getting altered because of the dissociation of gas as well as water. The coupled mechanism of flow will always make it difficult to make you realize or understand how exactly the permeability of the system is varying. And finally, with all these aspects, only we can go for the seafloor stability. Whenever we are going for the commercial extraction, having all these knowledge, we have to think about preparing a model which can be adopted for a pilot scale expedition, so that actually we have to have a clear-cut idea of how exactly that's where actually we have to join hands with the petrophysics to understand how exactly the presence of fractures as well as the geological formations have to be also looked into account whenever we are going for the stability aspects. Just to summarize, so this hydrate, as I have told, the amount of energy which is stored in methane hydrate is twice the capacity or twice the order of the total amount of natural hydrocarbons or the conventional uh, uh, reserves of natural gas which is available. Now, this is going to be an alternative energy source for sure, because always we are in the verge of questioning how long actually the natural gases can support the human beings on Earth. So this can be alternatively thought as an energy source because of its immense potential. Now, another challenge is to identify the location wherein along the coastal belt of India, where exactly we can find potential sources of gas hydrates which can last at least for 5 years, continuous, in continuous full run, how exactly actually it is going to perform. At the same time, actually pilot scale tests are also required for the extraction methodologies, because most of the studies are remaining or confined to the experimental studies that are conducted. So whatever be the chemical injection methods or the thermal destabilization or depressurization technique, which are already been established on a laboratory scale, should be adopted in the field in order to understand how exactly actually it is going to work. Way back in 2012, Japanese actually they have gone for the depressurization technique. They continuously extract the energy for almost for 20-25 days. But unfortunately, actually there was some issue which happened in between. It got fire in between. So there are many countries actually which is moving forward in this particular direction. So if there are people who are more dedicated, actually join hands with the lab at IIT Bombay. So we have facilities that are created for generating hydrates and doing experiments over there. And at the same time, actually you can think of always joining hands with ONGC as well as other funding agencies like GAIL in order to make it materialize for more funding options for working in this particular research thing. So with this, I conclude. Thank you. Any queries from your side?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, may I, dear participants, you can have your questions. Please ask your any queries or any questions or any more thing you want to like to know. Yes. Yes, Shashwat, please go ahead with your question. शाली मैडम उसको अनम्यूट कीजिएगा.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir,
Yeah,
while extracting the gas hydrates from the seabed, so it can affect the life cycle under the sea. So, how to deal with that?
Sir, can you please repeat it? Because I couldn't hear the question completely. Can you please repeat it?
Yes, sir. While extracting the hydrates from the seabed, it can affect the life cycle under the sea, right? So, how to deal with that situations?
Harsh, actually, it's an interesting question, but we have to realize that still we are in experimental mode. Most of the developed countries like Canada, Japan, and Chinese, actually, they have forwarded much ahead in this particular direction. But commercially, actually, nobody has come up with a holistic solution for the extraction methodology. So I appreciate that question, but always remember one thing: we are not trying to tamper anything at the surface level. See, the conventional gas reserves also, actually, if you see, we are going almost close to 600 or 700 meters from the ocean bed level for the extraction purpose. Almost even there are birds actually which are lying at 1 kilometer depth. So these hydrates actually they lie at a depth mostly close to 250 to 300 meters depth. So over there, actually, whatever be the methods which we are implementing, we have to see that actually it is not harming. And after all, at 250 meters depth, actually we cannot expect anything apart from the microorganisms that are present over there. So we have to, take that aspect into account. But at the same time, we have to also, appreciate that there is no clear-cut pathway which is always set in front of us to move forward. Okay, so this is a good concern, but always remember one thing. Actually, we are working at a platform which is almost 250 meters beneath the bed level of the sediment. Fine.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, any more questions or anyone else like to ask?
Professor Manish, you were the one actually who was asking the question
Yes,
between.
yes.
I'm sorry
Yes.
actually. I was
No, sir. It's okay, sir. It's okay. Actually,
So one
sir.
more question.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Please, Shalini madam, please.
So one more question is being asked by one participant.
Sure.
Good afternoon,
Shashwat
sir.
Mehta.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, what are the different method for extraction of the gas hydrate?
Truly speaking, actually, there are three methods which are available. So one method is basically, the thermal injection, or as I have told you, we have to play with the thermodynamics. Either you have to increase the temperature, or you have to decrease the pressure, or you have to add some chemical inhibitors. So these are the three ways which are in front of us. So as I have told you, these three methods have been proved working perfectly on experimental basis. But depressurization technique, actually it is already been tried in several countries and they have got better results. But all these methods, as I have told you, there is very recently, couple of years back, where Chinese actually they have tried to intrude the carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide gas has been injected into the ground at an elevated temperature as a replacement. So that also method is been tried. So there are three methods which are already been established on laboratory basis. In field scale, depressurization was found to be effective. It is proven, but it is, you have to invest energy. When you are thinking about applying depressurization, you are investing additional energy. So we have to think about the cost economics also. So we have to, always actually these are the three established methods by which actually you can think about the extraction.
Okay, sir. And sir, one more question from my side.
Yeah.
Sir, as we extract the gas hydrates from the seabeds, there are might be possible that water also come out, or some loss of strength of that seabeds or something. So there might be challenges. So how can we deal with that?
Can I just repeat once again? Sorry, it is related to.
By using the method when we extract the gas hydrates from below the seabeds.
Agreed.
There might be possible that water outflow or loss of strength of that seabeds, or might be other challenges there. So how we deal with that?
See, I appreciate your question, but at the same time, please realize actually the research in this particular domain has a long way to go. It requires at least next decade at least to set up a methodology, to set up a definite set of rules and regulations and guidelines for the commercial level. Fine. Still, we are thinking about pilot scale. Even India is moving towards a pilot scale, but we don't have a definite protocol or definite guideline which is set or a clear-cut path. It is open for us to play. Okay, so there is to your question, I would say that we have to have a long way to go to accomplish, and there is plenty of opportunities which are in front of you people, in which you can also contribute in this direction, because not many active people are coming in this direction to contribute in this area, because this area is quite challenging. As I have told you, there are plenty of challenges addressing these issues, creating facilities and all those stuff. Even at IIT Bombay, actually we tried quite a lot for establishing various setups and all those facilities. So we do appreciate many people, let more people come forward, get involved in this work, so that actually we can do better. Okay.
Sir, how the age of that gas hydrate is confirmed, sir?
Age of gas hydrates. Hello, your question is related to age of gas hydrates.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
How the age of gas hydrates?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I mean, yes. there are, sir, the best possible way of detecting the gas hydrates or the age of gas hydrate is by checking the type of gas hydrate which got developed over there. I will tell you how exactly it is possible, because there is a definite set of signature for a gas hydrate which is originated by biogenic as well as thermogenic. The signatures are available from the clathrate molecule that we obtain. Definite signatures are available for biogenic origin as well as thermogenic origin. Now, say if that particular gas hydrate has come in thermogenic form, so the age might be pretty old, as long as centuries old, whatever the gas, because actually the gas which is formed by thermogenic, it takes a pretty long time for passing from the bottom. Say for example, from 1 kilometer or 100 kilometer, takes a long time for reaching to the stability zone. The time evolved because too much pressure is required. Then only actually the gases will try to find pathways. It will take a long time for reaching, almost travel, because it's traveling almost close to 400 to 500 meters. Okay, so thermogenic origin gases actually, they are pretty old in nature. Now think about the other way, the biogenic origin. In case of biogenic origin, truly speaking, the organic content which is required, the biomass which is required for the formation of gas, they are recently originated, meaning that because of the sedimentation process which is happening yearly. So yearly, the rivers carry all these sediments, they will get deposited beneath the ocean bed. Now this will be undergone with, the bacterial action, the microbial action, and eventually actually the methane gas will get generated. So these gases will be pretty new, or these gases will be actually pretty new compared to the thermogenic origin. So this is how actually we can differentiate between, whether it is an old type or a new type.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and at the same time, whenever you go for expedition also, you can find some, formations at a closer depth. Now there will be a pocket which is empty for next 50 meters, 60 meters, it will be empty. After that, actually, you will see continuous layers of hydrates. So this is nothing other than the bottom one will be from the thermogenic origin. The one which is at the shallow depth, it might be from the biogenic origin. So that's how actually you can make out.
Sir, is there is there any observation, particularly with respect to the movement of the porosity in the gas hydrates?
Movement of porosity.
Porosity in the gas hydrates as you travel either vertically or horizontally. Means something like movement on both the side, means gas hydrates are not moving, but their porosity is moving.
Sir, I mean, sir, think about it in this way. Actually, I understand your question. So, in one of the figures, actually, I have shown to you in which the gases are traveling through the pathways which are trying to move upward. So, truly speaking,
but it has any change, means whether they are changing porosity.
Exactly, because actually the moment when these gases are getting converted to, because actually more and more gas is getting generated from thermogenic action. So when these gases, when more and more pressure get developed, that's why actually the gases which are required for the hydrate formation is accumulated at a certain zone. Okay, so when it reaches that particular zone, slowly small clathrates, small nuclides will start getting generated. Now more and more gas will get accumulated. Now what will happen is actually it will get enlarged in its size. So the moment it is getting enlarged in its size, it is pushing away the sediments to its adjacent area.
Yes, sir.
So truly speaking, actually the movement of the particles, the movement of the sediments are happening in either direction. It happens both in the vertical direction as well as in the horizontal direction. Now think in this way, actually, anything that you see over there. So for example, if you are having an extraction rig which is located just above the location in which we have gas hydrates. Now, in such zones, it is always a potential threat. The moment they dissociate, actually everything will just fall down, all of a sudden. It's like a liquefaction phenomena that happens.
Okay.
So without any warning, actually it will get failed. So as you have mentioned, related to the porosity, we can have the movement of particles that are happening in X, Y, Z, in all the possible directions actually which is possible. So to do that, actually, if you are really curious to know about that, my suggestion is actually you take a small sediment sample, you take a small soil sample, okay. After that, actually, what you can do is actually you can saturate them, like what happens inside, beneath the sediment. After that, actually, you start freezing it. You can do this experiment at different saturation states and understand how much is the strain which is getting developed because of the crystal formation. Because the density of this ice which is formed as well as the density of hydrate are almost same, 0.910. So there is an expansion. So there is strain which is getting developed. So truly speaking, this strain is equivalent to the variation in the dimension which that particular material should have undergone. So that's why actually you can contribute in terms of the volume. Because how much ever be that actually volume expansion it undergoes, based on that actually we can estimate how much is basically the volumetric expansion which the system has undergone. So truly speaking, in my belief, I would say that actually the sediment ocean bed that you see, it is basically something like a tent. Truly speaking, the content is not that much. The content in the sense actually the majority of these things are popped up because of the gases which are developed, and majority of these materials are basically unconsolidated too. So in that way, we can expect the movement of unconsolidated sediments in both these directions with the expansion phase.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Let's any more queries?
Any more questions? Okay. No worries, sir. Okay, sir. So on behalf of Applied Mechanics Department, sir, I once again am very much grateful to you for accepting our invitation and giving your expert lecture for this STTP. So thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for reminding me of what I have done almost 3-4 years back. Even now, I am continuing with certain area which is related to this, but not exactly gas hydrates. Right now, I just slightly deviated my interest to the gas transport through various systems.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Professor.
Definitely, future we will have some interaction, sir.
Definitely. Thanks a lot. And your questions are also really encouraging. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So, dear participants, we will now moving ahead with our last session, that is the fourth session, which will be commencing at 3:45 sharply. That is, we have once again a very eminent speaker in between us, that is Dr. Vivek Kapadia, who is the Secretary in the Water Resource Department of Government of Gujarat, and he will be sharing his expert topic on this. So let us meet once again at 3:45 p.m. Okay, thank you.